All right. We are patched in. Hello to our viewing audience here at 95.3 FM. That's Tallahassee's highest praise, Hallelujah FM. I believe that we will be patched in here shortly with our producer here at the station. We are so pleased and so grateful that we have a whole team working with us to make sure that this off-site broadcast happens well. So if you're tuned in now online, please, by all means, make sure that you post and share. So we will be going live here shortly. And again, please have to share. I see that's a bad viewer. That's one viewer I see on there. That's a bad one viewer, Dr. Mandrell. If you're tuned in, if you're tuned in today to the check. This is the Conscious Check Show with Christy Henry at the Greg James Community Show. You know, our whole theme of this broadcast is to give your voice more volume. And the purpose of the Conscious Check broadcast is to discover, explore, and be able to further articulate economic terms, economic understanding that leads to economic vitality within our community. So we definitely appreciate you all tuning in again. Post, share, tag, share. We are live, I tell you, LIVE from Dr. Judy hometown. We are live from the Sistrunk community of Fort Lauderdale. That's Broward County. Broward, all y'all in Tallahassee, we know many of our students have come from Broward County. I went to school with quite a few Broward County folks and know a lot of folks from Fort Lauderdale, good folks from Fort Lauderdale. And the difference here is that it's a lot more international. It's not a lot more diverse in terms of nationality than North Florida, if you will. But we still have some of the same issues, some of the same obstacles that we face as a community. So today's broadcast is going to tackle on that. I'm going to bring on Emily in a moment. But Dr. Judy, can you share with the audience? Dr. Judy is my special guest pastoral co-host because I have to have a pastor on because somebody got to pull my coattail if I get too far to the left. So I always try to have a referee in hand. And I'm so blessed that the Lord has gifted us with Dr. Judy Vendrell, who, again, we're in her hometown. Dr. Judy, can you share with the audience just kind of your memories? We talked a lot about your mother, Dr. Irma Hunter, Wesley Hunter, who is very, very much a huge icon within this community. Just speak to that and talk about the why of this conversation today.
Thank you so very much, Christy, and this to all of you all. I am excited about this, and you all are in my hometown, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and I am excited about it. My mom, I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. I graduated from South Plantation High School. All of my sisters, my brother graduated from Stranahan. Chico the Virgo, Sylvester Wesley. My mama is Dr. Irma Hunter Wesley, and she had a child care development center for 45 years on Sistrunk, and it is currently the YMCA, and it sits on her street, Dr. Irma Hunter Wesley Way. And so I believe that this conversation is so important, Christine, and to the special guest, is because we got to keep our legacy alive. We have to keep it built. We have to keep it going. Our young people need to know our history. Well, we have a rich history in Fort Lauderdale. We have a rich legacy in Fort Lauderdale. I am proud to be from Broward County, right off 31st Avenue, over there in Parkway. I think we named it Lotta here. So we are excited about being on today, Christy. Thank you.
And I think that people hear the term, of bigger cities, because we're from Tallahassee. You ain't got to think too far to, know what Tallahassee is, right? It's right. Tallahassee, and you might get caught up in like Woodville or like Fort Braden, or you might get caught up in some other area of Tallahassee, Miccosukee, like Bradfordville. You might get caught up. But people say the word Fort Lauderdale, but within the Fort Lauderdale metro context are a lot of different communities, a lot of different representative spaces and area. And that's why it's really relevant, as you said earlier, for us to be broadcasting. And this is what I love about metro areas. Not that they, Tallahassee, Leon County, shout out, highest educated population in the state. maybe the nation. But you get to like a metro city and you see where there is such proactiveness in the sense of making sure that that cultural conversation has a place. And so to be here at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center of Broward County, which by the way is a facility under the Broward County Library System, is significant, right? And we're in their oral history podcasting room, right? So there's another intentionality there in terms of making sure that we curate and cultivate not just this sense of, stoic history as it's written in the book, but that we chronicle narratives, like you talked about earlier, being raised in these streets, having a mother who had a daycare that now has been turned into a family center and a family hub within the community, having a street named after her, regular resident and citizen that has done great things in the community, and her legacy is earmarked by a street sign. Those are the places that we need to go in the community. And I think that this is a really great conversation today because our two guests are going to really be able to succinctly put together the pieces of history as it relates not just to our social and civic, but it's an economic conversation. Before it really is a civic social, it is an economic conversation, right? If you look at slavery, it's an economic conversation, right? If you look at Reconstruction, those are economic conversations. If you look at the civil rights movement and all the labor movements that have entailed from there, these are economic conversations that have a civic social context that we have to address. But for some reason, we hear a lot about the civic social, not a whole lot about the economic. So I am so pleased that we are here having this conversation today. I'm going to continue on to the podcast. I'm hoping that we could take maybe a couple of minutes. I want to make sure that we are broadcasting at Hallelujah 95.3 FM. Again, we are streaming simultaneously on their Facebook page as well as on the radio station. And I want to give us a quick break here to be able to gather up and to be able to explain to you the arsenal of knowledge that is here today for you all to be able to explore this topic and also for you to get your comments and your questions in. So we'll take a short break here and we will return here shortly to introduce our guest here live from Broward County's African American Research Library and Cultural Center. And we are so pleased and so honored to be in your hometown, Dr. Judy.
Yes.
This broadcast. All right. If you're continuing to listen in, we don't want to have any dead space or dead air. So we want to make sure that y'all know that we are continuing into the conversation. We're going to just take a quick little station break just to make sure that we are on par with our broadcasting coordinates here in Tallahassee. So give us a short moment and then we'll return to our live conversation.
It might be them because you saw how they just like standing in a room.
Just sitting.
How
Just sitting in the room. Can y'all hear me? No. There's
so they have microphones that's trying to pick them up.
because when I just before I unmuted, I can hear everything you're doing it there. Before I muted, I can hear everything, all your movement.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they know we get a little wiggy on the broadcast side. Hey y'all, we're getting ready to go on live to Hallelujah 95.3 FM. Yeah, so we're getting ready to be patched in. All right. Okay. Perfect. All right. Good afternoon and welcome, welcome, welcome. If you just tuned in or you're just hearing my voice, you know I am not Greg James. I am Christy Henry, and you have tuned into the Conscious Check with Christy Henry. Our live broadcast happens every second Wednesday of the month, where we delve into issues of economic, cultural, and community topics, and we are so glad to be here today. If you have just joined us, you missed the first piece of this on the live stream, right? So you have got to go kick it at the live stream like afterwards, not right now, afterwards, right? Because we have a preamble to the show today. So you need to go online to Hallelujah 95.3 FM, Tallahassee's highest praise. Shout out to Doc D, who's on the background. Listen, if you're tuned in now, we are in Fort Lauderdale. We are not in Tallahassee. If it gives you an understanding of the power of technology, we are literally in Fort Lauderdale, Sistrunk community in Fort Lauderdale at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center, which is an agency of the Broward County Library System. And we are so pleased to be here with some dynamic women. One of them, Dr. Judy, is called an economic doctor. Who gets called an economic doctor?
Right.
You know exactly what you're doing. So I am so excited to be introducing our guest today. Dr. Judy, you earlier were talking about the Sistrunk in Fort Lauderdale community, and your dear mother, Dr. Irma Hunter Wesley, she actually has a legacy here in this community. You were sharing with us earlier. She owned a daycare. She was a business owner. She was an educator, and she had a facility here for how many years?
45.
Did you say 45?
45.
Woo.
45 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
And what happened as a result of her running this business? Of course, 40-something years is 4 generations, right? Yeah. So she basically educated 4 generations of children within this. So this is your hometown. This is your hometown. When you have been an educator here for that long, this is your hometown. This is somewhere where you have made a dynamic impact. Talk about it. I know our show today, Dr. Judy, is about kind of bridging the gap between the cultural and economic conversations, because your mother was a business owner, but she was also an educator. Talk to that a little bit so that the audience can be prepped for our conversation today, and why it's important for us to learn and bridge the gap between both of those.
I was talking with my mom early about your show, Sister Christy, and I told her what we were going to talk about. And she said, don't forget to tell them that the women who work with her, 7 of them were with her 43 years.
Wow.
7 of them worked with her 43 years. She was there 45. 7 women worked with her 43 years. This is what she made each one of them get that director's license. She has served over 5,200 children. She has a lot of legislators and senators, business owners who have come out of there. And she also served their children. She served their children. She taught at the legislators. She taught the Senate. She knew all of the governors. Jim Moran and Jane Moran, they were her partners because she liked what she did. But check this out. She went into the community.
Yes.
And she made those parents get up and bring their children to that daycare. She made the parents dress a certain way. She had them to dress their children a certain way. And the ones who came in loud and cursing, she didn't fight them. She taught them a different way. And so impact in that community has spread it all over the world simply because of her willingness to teach all generations. And can I tell, she had her office designed where it's set in the middle of the daycare. So she can see every class. And with the YMCA, I'm sure that these wonderful women have probably been in that new YMCA. And if you go in there, you will see Dr. Irma's Way.
Mm.
And it sits in the middle. They try to, replicate her daycare in that YMCA because of the impact that she made. But she was training those leaders, those women on this shit. And who has 7 people to work for you 43 years?
Oh, absolutely. There's got to be people that have bought into your system. They've bought into your vision. They're being empowered to be leaders under your leadership. They are being stewards of the information and of the lives that they're touching. That's how you get 7 people to work for you for 43 years. And I think that, it speaks to how we approach the working community. We're in different times.
Yeah.
Your mother began her work in a time that people understood the necessity of ensuring education systems, especially alternative education systems where things weren't equitable, were maintained in the daycare construct or infrastructure, because those kids had to go to where? The school system, right? And they understood that. So as we're talking about economic development today, and we're talking about culture, I think there's a central understanding that your mother had, and that I'm sure you were given as you watched and you modeled her. And that is the sense that this ain't about becoming a famous leader or somebody. This is about creating a system and a legacy of community that survives and that is viable and that is valuable, right? And that informs the economic trajectory of the area and preserves it. So I am so excited to have with us today. I mean, we ain't gonna have enough time. I'm just gonna tell y'all, we ain't got enough time. We don't have enough time, but we're gonna try to give y'all a little piece of this, right? We might have to bring some folks back. I am so excited to be here in Fort Lauderdale with my dear Dr. Tamika Bradley Hobbs, who I met as a result of our work with the Soul of Southside Festival in Tallahassee, Florida. She came as a historic expert, and she did a whole dissertation on how you get a Southside Tallahassee, what economic, social, governmental, public policy things factor into becoming a Southside Tallahassee, and how, based on knowing this, we move forward. It was good. You took that thing all the way from Reconstruction to, it was awesome.
I was at last session on education.
Yes,
ma'am. On education in Tallahassee.
Yes, you did.
So, yeah. I just want to welcome you to Fort Lauderdale and to the African American Research Library and Cultural Center. Nice to be with you, Dr. Judith. On this show, we, as you said, are part of Broward County Library's public library system,
Yeah.
But we have a unique mission. We actually are, at the time of our founding in 2002, one of 3 such institutions in the nation. That
Wow.
was a publicly funded, but intentionally Black space. We have an archives here, cultural center, 300-seat auditorium, museum galleries, and a circulating library with youth services and adult information services. And so there's so much that happens inside of this building, but I learned from you. It was wonderful to be a part of the Soul of Southside Arts and Humanities Festival those 2 years in a row. And I took those lessons with me when I landed here in Fort Lauderdale last year. I was like, we've got to do this all over again. Actually, it was 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, last year was my, I just finished my 1-year anniversary. But I was like, we got to do this because all the ingredients are here. And we're facing some of the same realities in terms of neighborhood change and the challenge of embracing the opportunities ourselves, but also contending with the legacy of our communities and helping to preserve that. And so your arts and humanities model was one that I was really inspired by. And I want to thank you so much for working with us as we go into this March, what will be our inaugural Africana Arts and Humanities Festival, powered by Broward County's African American Research Library, in partnership with folks on this corridor, including Cheryl Dickey, Dickey Consulting and her Midtown Commerce Center. There's so many partners that we've been able to bring to the table. It is shaping up wonderfully, but it's the work. It is the
Right.
call of our times when we have so much in encroachment.
Yes.
And, I worked for many years. I spent 13 years altogether in Tallahassee as a student at Florida A&M.
That's right.
As a
Dr.
graduate.
Lewis said hello.
Hello. And then working, I also did my graduate work at Florida State University. But in between that, I worked not only at the Black Archives on FAMU's campus, but with Althemies Barnes and the John Gilmore Riley Center Museum, doing projects in Frenchtown, cemetery preservation. So my whole work and my intention of my work has always been around community history, public history, and this challenge that we have with the changing dynamics.
Yes.
And one of the things that one of my partners in Jacksonville would say is that we don't have to wait for other people to come into
That's
our neighborhood and make them what they should be. That
That's
we
right.
have the opportunity, what Cheryl Dickey knows, she herself is the embodiment
Yep.
of people who've come to the community and made investments. She's built a beautiful structure on Sistrunk Boulevard to try to make sure that we own this place, that we maintain this place, and that we continue to tell a story and do the work, and that we can thrive
Yes.
and we can be prosperous. And that's really our intention. With Arlick at the helm of this festival, we will help to uplift the neighborhood story. We will put it in the context of the national story that is all inspiring, but we're going to hold hands with our partners who know how to revitalize neighborhoods like yourself.
That's right.
To help facilitate the conversations around that piece. So for all of that, I just want to thank you and give you your flowers publicly for being amazing and inspiring and doing the work and again, being willing to work with us to spread the gospel of what we can do together.
Listen, I was inspired by somebody else, and listen, it took a team of folks to bring the SOS Festival to fruition in Tallahassee. It was a dream probably about 7 years before it happened. But it takes that long for it to root, and then the opportune moment happens, and then you're able to do it, and then you just create a framework where you do it over and over again. And I am just pleased because what SOS and what the Africana Festival is going to do is what is a critical thing we need to do, which is marry the conversation of culture to economy, right? And y'all, Ms. Cheryl Dickey, she sits here real quietly, right? But this is a storm. This is a quiet storm right here. This was the Chief Economic Development Officer for Fort Lauderdale. She has a lot of history as it relates. In fact, she's the one that people come to ask questions about public policy that dates back all the way. It's our business. But she is one of the reigning understanding women of this community who get CDBG, who gets all of these different funding pools that come available that have an economic development focus, and it's changed over the years, right, based on public policy.
That's right.
But man, some of the base concepts are still there, and your knowledge is obviously ridiculously valuable. You have gone into private consultancy, in fact, and developed an incubator here. Can you speak to that, particularly from the perspective of Broward County? Because I'm sure you could probably look at it from the trajectory as Dr. Mandrell could and her mother in terms of where it was, where it is now, and what we need to do moving forward.
Yes. No, at first I want to acknowledge Dr. Judith. Indeed, when I first came here 32 years ago as the Economic Development Director for the City of Fort Lauderdale, your mother's place was one of the first places that we looked at. Because of course, she was housed there in the facility that was part of the City of Fort Lauderdale's ownership, where the Community Development Department was, and of course she had the daycare center there. So it's my delight to meet you and know that I'm talking to someone with legacy here in Fort Lauderdale, because what we are doing now is in fact that, wanting to make sure we get the oral history of the various pioneers and trailblazers, and make sure that we actually codify that, put it on record, because it's very important. And so what I've done with the Midtown Commerce Center, I built it 12 years ago with the grace of God and many people who helped me to actually pull the financing together. Luckily, I was able to understand a lot of it because I came from Ohio, where I ran the small and minority business division for the state of Ohio. That's how I got here. And I said to myself, when I was first driven down Sistrunk Boulevard by the city manager, there he was telling me all about it. Of course, at that point, it had been devastated because of the 80s. That happened all across this country, the drug addiction, et cetera. And the folks that actually created all of our Black-owned businesses on Sistrunk, some of their children did not want to continue it on, so therefore it left vacancies of land and buildings. And with that, then it was up to us to really redevelop the area. And that's how I came to say to myself, I'm not going to leave Broward County and Fort Lauderdale and go back to Ohio. When I was laid off from the city, I then started my own business, basically 29 years ago, to do consultancy. So I do community and economic development consultancy, as well as public outreach. So it is because of that I said I'm going to actually put my resources and the funds that I've made doing the consultancy back into the community, which is what we've got to try to teach others to do. Because essentially when we started with integration, people were thinking, oh, I don't want to go back to the community that I may have come from or my parents have come from, because that's what I heard, Doctor, when I came here, and it was disheartening. Of course, I have seen it, of course, in other major cities, how we then abandon our own properties and then, of course, blame others for taking the property when, in fact, we gave it to them. And we have to realize that we got to talk the truth to each other.
Speak the truth.
We got to talk the truth to each other and say, no, what we need to do is take back the land, and understand that real estate is more important than a watch and jewelry and gold and diamonds, et cetera. But that's something that's taught, that I know your mother taught. All those folks you were talking about, I'm sitting around them now, the senators, the representatives, et cetera. Because of course I was introduced to all of them. And they indeed did tell me that they went to the daycare center that your mother in fact had, as well as a few others that were in the community. But it is so important for us to begin to assist early, the staff here. Dr. Tamika is a godsend to us, a godsend, because she's bringing back things that we know we should have been doing. And I'm just elated to be a part of it and can't wait as we move forward. I know it's going to take a little while, but at least we're beginning again. So I'm pleased.
So, this is not enough time, Dr. Judy. We don't have enough time. I want to go back to two things that you said. The first thing is that 2024 has opened up with violence, right? Everybody's on this truth, right? It's like somebody took, like champagne had truth serum in it on New Year's Eve, and now everybody, and this is the year of truth. Somebody has actually earmarked this as the year of truth. And I think that it's really important for us to understand that in order to move forward, you got to reckon what has happened in the past. And you are right. In Southside Tallahassee, thing I heard I'm a real estate broker by trade, like that's my real job. The thing I heard from people was, I don't want to move back there. I don't want to buy no house there. And even now I get people that are calling because our city is growing and we got employers and yada. But people tell me things like, oh, somebody told me not to move to the South Side. I live in the South Side. Dr. Judy lives in the South Side. And it's these warring perceptions that we have regarding the value of our own. The value of our own. It's one thing for people to devalue you from the external, but it's another thing when that thing comes from within you and your perception is shaped by devaluation, right? Yeah. You spoke to that so eloquently. And I think the value of culture reinvigorates that perception of value, right? Yes. Because nobody else is giving up their area.
No, nobody.
Little Tokyo, little Chop, they're not giving up their space. No. But our children generationally are moving away and they don't want to come back. They don't want to be reconciled with their own place, right? And now we're realizing as we have these conversations about negative gentrification and also displacement, that's where it happens. It begins within our own value construct. Yes. Can you talk about how as an economic development expert and how as a historian, how do we move forward this conversation? Because it's a deep in us, right? And we got to deal with that.
We do. I'll just start by saying I know my role and I know my place. I'm a historian. We focus on stories, but I also that part, while it is backwards looking, I do appreciate the value and the power of history to orient us to ourselves, to tell us who we are, to tell us where we are, what we've been, and where we need to go. That's a paraphrasing of Dr. John Henry Clark. In this very room, a couple weeks ago, we had a Kwanzaa program where we uplifted the 90th anniversary of Dr. Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro. And in revisiting that text, I was absolutely blown away. This was published in 1933. And when I tell you that as a historian, Dr. Woodson was crystal clear about the root of our problem. First and foremost, the stories that we were being told about others, about Africans and African Americans, that completely devalued who we were, that we believed, that other people believed, and that then affected our psychology and allowed us to accept this second-class citizenship, to disbelieve or not believe in our ability to advance and to own in this society. That was the first thing that you will see repeated throughout that work 90 years ago.
90.
The second part of it is whatever education that we did needed to be practical to help us to own and to build and to employ for the benefit of our own community. 90 years ago. And it was shocking to me that a text that old is as valid and necessary
And relevant.
to what we're experiencing today. So I always have considered myself to be more of an activist historian. It does no good to sit in a box, to sit in an archive, to sit on the shelf. What do these stories, what does this wisdom empower us to do? And it's doing the very thing that we're attempting to do, that you two do, and that we're attempting to do in this model, is that let's tell our generations, contemporary generations, older generations, investors, the children, tell them a different story, generate that pride, but then let's mobilize that energy and those resources to actually make the tangible investments in our businesses, in our buildings, to own something ourselves.
That's right.
I'm tired of conversations about gentrification. I want to know where we want to be, what we want to own, what we want to build, and what we want to pass on to the next generation. I think that's a more relevant conversation, but that's why I have to join hands with folks like Ms. Dickey and the other people that we have around the table, the Urban League. We have the Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business Development who are working with us, the Fort Lauderdale CRA. I could go on and on. I'm so grateful that they're willing to work with us, but just out of the gate, because of the blueprint that you passed on to us, Christy, we're ready to go. We're going to make it happen this March.
And I want to add the Broward Cultural Division.
Yes, Broward Cultural. Can't forget that.
One of the things I wanted to say too about what you all are saying, when Christy, I'm from Fort Lauderdale, right? But when she did the Soul of Southside, she and her team, but when Christy, she had so much energy, it's like it brought the people in. And there was a point in there where the older people sat down with the younger people and started telling the stories.
Yes.
And really instilling into them the value of the community, the value of Southside. I remember in Fort Lauderdale, those green apartments that was across from the daycare. That was one of my favorite places to hang out. And I used to like to sit there and tell stories. Because my mom would often tell us where we come. My dad was the first Black sheriff in a deputy sheriff in Fort Lauderdale. And so to be able to sit and tell those stories, and that's what Christy did. That week, well, the first time was weekend, the next was a week, but it brought a interest in the mind of the people. And I think that's what we have to get to. We could get to the mind to see so our people can see the value. My brother sent us something that said it's better to have a $5 purse with $500 in it instead of a $500 purse with $5 in it. It has to be taught. And I think we're doing this, and the model that Christy put forth here in Tallahassee, And as it go, it's gonna save Six Trunk. I was home for Thanksgiving, and I even saw people picking up trash on Six Trunk, where at one time they're just kicking. You know, the commissioner who got the chicken shack, I forgot his name, but he was there with my mom as well. But now, you know who I'm talking about?
Senator Chris Smith.
That's him. Oh, okay, that's my sister talking. But so the value has to be placed in people so you can see why is it more important for me not to sell my land? Why can I build this up? Why can I bring what I have into my own place? And so when Kristen started that, man, the people were, I was so proud to be from Southside. I just wanted me some shirts made that I live in Southside. First, I didn't know I lived in Southside. I don't know where I thought I lived. And Kristen told they told me that I live in Southside. I'm like, I live in Southside? But the pride that she brought, the joy of hearing the stories. We rode a bus to hear the story of the older people brought such a pride. And I believe I can see that happening using this model right there in Fort Lauderdale, Broward County. We're saving these areas and getting the people mind change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ms. Dickey mentioned the Broward Cultural Division. They work with her. They are funding Destination Sistrunk. And Destination Sistrunk is one of our major partners for the event. And what they're doing is hosting a neighborhood reunion.
Yes.
That's going to bring together people who live in the neighborhood currently, who used to live in the neighborhood, to fellowship, to exchange. And then we're going to bring these young people in so they could witness that and be a part of that and listen. We're going to do these neighborhood tours, tell the story. We're talking about opportunity tours.
That's right.
So the people with resources, and that's something that I am being more cognizant of and giving voice to. There are so many of us with means and the ability to make large investments. There are people who want to get educated and learn about these opportunities. We're going to take them out and to let them see what's under construction, what's still available for purchase. Our partners at the Urban League, along with the Economic and Small Business Development and the Broward Black Chamber of Commerce, are going to have what we're calling a neighborhood revitalization symposium all day on Friday. And so we're going to have sessions where people can learn about being fiscally ready, fiscal readiness, she said, and just all of these different sessions. So we're going to empower this community. We're going to inspire this community. And I can't wait to see what's going to come out on the other side of it.
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here like trying to hold back tears because this isn't, although we have a national conversation about prosperity within legacy communities, it's really not, it's only as powerful nationally as it is locally.
Locally, right.
Right?
That's right.
It's only as powerful. Our story only becomes, I'm looking on our StreamYard and I'm looking at Darius D. Baker, who's our producer. He is the musical director for the Soul Southside Festival, where he's parlayed that, and now he owns like a whole event planning facility on Tallahassee Southside. I'm looking at my aunt, Shirley Pittman. Hey, Aunt Shirley. Hey, SCB. She has been a daycare provider, just like Dr. Mandrell, for years in Tallahassee. She lives in Tallahassee Southside, in one of the legacy neighborhoods within the community. I'm looking at and I'm seeing all of these things coming together in my mind, and you recognize and you justify and say it's not about you. It's about doing what Woodson did years ago and seeing things conceptually and contextually and being able to have that language survive and be relevant for generations, because we ain't got a new problem.
No.
Right.
It's sad to say, it's very painful to say, but these are not new problems.
That's right.
Not at all.
They're not new problems, and they tend to just kind of replicate, and now they take on the age that they're in, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I think that we have to press in on culture and history. We have to press in. I'm overwhelmed because I know that this is God. I know that this is the leading of His Spirit, and saying all those folks that went through slavery, all those folks that went through Reconstruction, all those folks that suffered tremendous indignities socially, trying to aspire and upward attain in America. Their stories live in our communities. Their context is the backdrop of legacy communities. That's why we call them legacy communities. We don't call them just black neighborhoods no more. They are legacy communities because every street, every house tells the story of the first black deputy sheriff. It tells the story of the educator, child care person that raised over 5,700 children within the construct of a community. It tells the story of their place in the national story. So you're right. We have got to be vigilant in this age of truth, in this 2024 year of truth, to make sure that this is elevated in the necessary places, so that people can see us individually, so they can have an idea collectively. Because we can't put every community in a box. Talk about this in the last couple of minutes that we have. What is Fort Lauderdale? And what's the similarities to Tallahassee, Florida?
Well, Fort Lauderdale, as you know, is really the main part of South Florida besides Miami. That because we have the tourism, we have Port Everglades, which is really the second largest port in the state of Florida. People are coming here from everywhere to sell out to wherever they're going, the Caribbean, etc. And so Fort Lauderdale is a major metropolitan area, even though it's a small, it's a medium-sized city when people look at it in terms of population, but not in its economic status. The engines are the airport, the seaport, and I want to talk about the longshoremen. You know why. So they're going to be one of the places where that's going to be doing some of the redevelopment, and we're going to talk about that later. We don't have enough time, but they are redeveloping. But they're going to be doing redevelopment on Sistrunk Boulevard. See, instead of selling the land, they know what their purpose is here. First of all, it's one of the major employers of Black men and women now. Because the port's not going anywhere, and they are the mainstay for keeping that port alive. And the director will tell you that when we're in these Port Authority Association meetings, he says it all the time. The current president happens to be Johnny Dixon, but he can't say enough about it in front of all these little wealthy folks. That's what I'm saying. So we have value. We just have to teach it. And I want to tell a story. Right before I left for the Thanksgiving holiday, the Trailblazers had an event. And one of the older citizens, Dr. Gainey, Leonard Gainey, he was the first postman. He happens to go to St. John United Methodist Church, which is where I attend, and he's 96 years old. And so we got him to come back to church in November, and I didn't know he was the first Black postman. And see, so of course you did, and people need to know that. I mean, then he went on to work for the Broward Hospital District. So that whole promotion and then being able to do things. He also was at the Urban League before the hospital district. So you see how people grow, and we need to tell folks that's what the young people today can do. The very same thing.
Yes.
The very same thing. Very same thing. That's what legacy is all about.
That's what legacy
is
all about. It's about replicate. That's what legacy is all about. And that's what legacy is all about, y'all. I think for Dr. Judy, you're gonna have to talk for a minute because I can't get my words because I'm so full right now.
This is beautiful. Wow.
I think that it's so heavy. It's so relevant, and it's so real when you're sitting here and you come from your city, which is my adopted hometown. Because I'm from Lakeland, Florida, but I love Tallahassee. Dr. Judy loves Tallahassee. Everybody that's there loves that community, and I think that that's what fuels movements like the Africana Arts and Humanities Festival and the Soul of Southside Arts and Humanities Festival. It's love. It's love. It's wanting to see love transferred as a legacy from generation to generation. Whether your love was on kids, or whether your love was through cakes, or whether your love was through the shore, the seaport, or whether your love is through a business or merchant. That love being transferred from generation to generation that establishes a legacy for your children to stand on. That's what it is.
It's loving a place. If you love this place, invest in this place. Make this place something that you can be proud to hand on to your children.
Yes.
If you love this place, you should love and want to live here. And I think that that's all a possibility for us. I've watched generation after generation of Black folks as we come up on this Martin Luther King holiday. Very important time marker for us to understand what has happened since this great leader was assassinated. And what I've seen in our community far too much is us chasing other groups of people and their dreams instead of building in what we had. And we had this place. It looked a certain way. It was underinvested in because of these systemic reasons. But as we attained power, instead of having it being diffused in other people's arenas, we should have coalesced that power. And that's one thing that's very clear to me as an African American raised in North Florida.
Yes.
And the difference in the Caribbean communities that I've seen here, it's that immigrant model where they understand how to make this thing work for them. It is ownership, it is population concentrated, it is businesses, it is meeting the basic needs of your communities, amassing power, and then you progress in that way. And I think we need to get back to that.
That's right.
We understood it at one point, but we're and then I think too also there's a renaissance there for us. I've seen it. I see it in people like Cheryl. There's so many other stories on this boulevard. We want more of it. I'm hungry for more of it. And if there's anything that Arlette can do to be an engine for it, we're going to do that.
I think you just raised your hand. I see you, child. I love my Tallahassee community. We love it too. Listen, I think that this is the beginning of a conversation, Dr. Mandrell. This is the beginning of a consistent conversation. Because if we can teach love of place, then we can teach public safety.
Yes.
We can teach reduction of violence. We can show people how those types of things reduce the value of community, how they take away, how they strip away. We could talk about drug use. We could talk about, street commerce and how it reduces the value of place. If we can get the love right, if we can get the love of place correctly, then we can translate it into, okay, now this takes away from that. This robs that. So y'all need to understand when you engage in these behaviors, this robs that. This takes this away from us. And so I think it's a necessary conversation. We are in our final moments. I want to recap for our audience here. This has been I'm trying to hold back the tears because this is the hard work. We are live here in off Sister Boulevard over here in the Sister community of Fort Lauderdale at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center, which is an agency of the Broward County Library. In closing today, and from both of you, and Dr. Mandrell, you can chime in as we close, what does the role of partnership, intentional partnership, play in moving this forward?
For me, it's being willing to follow, you being willing to share, being willing to partner, being willing to be equitable. That's how this work gets done. And so I'm really glad to be sitting between the two of you and working with the two of you. Just for your audience, if anyone is interested in more information about the festival, you can follow our website, which is under construction right now. For the festival specifically, it is africanafestival.broward.org. If you're interested in learning more about the African American Research Library and Cultural Center, you can type into your search bar aarlcc.broward.org, or you can email us at aarlcc@broward.org. Hope to see you here. Would love to have folks at Tallahassee come down. Recruit your scholars to come and present.
I'm coming. We coming. We coming.
Just that you can't do any of this on your own. And if we could learn as a people, we kind of start out and say, I want to do my own thing. Oh, I can do it better. Or, we have our own ideas, and we have to learn how to partner more, just as you have said, because we get more done when we are in community and when we are working together. When we work together, we get more done.
Dr. Judy, you have any final thoughts on the conversation? On the conversation today.
And this was powerful. And I just want to say, I was thinking the same thing. If we can all come together, like when Krista started, she had meetings. And so you had different people who led a certain segment, but those different people invited the opinion and everything of everybody. So if you had 12 people there, it wasn't a matter of who was to lead. We had to get this done for our community. And I believe that's what makes it so successful. We bring what we have to the table collectively and make it work. A good band with a bass, a lead guitar, the organ, and all of that. The drummer can't outdo all of the other instruments. It has to fall in so the orchestration or the orchestra can be great. I see what you all are doing. I see you in the future. And I see it working out real good. I'm sure. When is the festival? When is it?
Amen.
When is it?
Well, listen, we're gonna bless the efforts of the Africana Arts and Humanities Festival. I'm definitely gonna make my way down here to support and celebrate with the community
You
of
gotta pray.
Sister.
You gotta pray. We need some prayer warriors to pray on this travel. Every time she try to come down here,
It's warfare.
We need to clean that up. It's time for March.
When is the festival?
I'm gonna need some travel partners. Dr. Judy.
When is it, Chris?
I want to come on, huh?
When is it?
It's
March 21st through 23rd. March 21st through 23rd. That's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday towards the end of March.
3-day festival. So we'll make sure that we publish the information on our link. I'll make sure I update the post from today to include the information. And at the end of the day, just know we're so proud of the effort. We're so proud of the work moving forward. And we want to invite other communities that are looking to do this type of work. Come on board, start imagining, start dreaming. The blessing of them having already brought together major partners, the Urban League of Broward County and the African American Chamber of Commerce and the CRA here locally, they bought into the vision. Let's create this vision moving forward. And we don't have to reimagine our dream. We just got to have the right dream, right? And it's got to be based upon the proper construct. And as we go into MLK weekend, we want to encourage you all, participate in the city observances, participate in all of the offerings and all the conversations, and let's come together and meet. Thank all of you for tuning in. We thank you all for being here today. This is just the first part of this. Now, go follow this, y'all. We're going to continue to have this conversation, but it's a rich conversation, and my prayer is that in this era of truth, we will begin to have those worthy, truthful conversations with ourselves and be able to set a vision forward to leave a legacy for our children to inherit. So thank you all for listening in today on Hallelujah 95.3 FM. Thank you, listeners. If you have any questions, please hit us up on the inbox. And until next Wednesday, Dr. Judy, did you have any final thoughts?
No.
Okay, until the next broadcast, we want you all to continue to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Y'all take care. Amen.
Indeed, amen.
I tell you,
Thank you.
this has been something. Thank you all so much for tuning in online. This was amazing, amazing, amazing. We will keep the conversation going and get you the information on the updates that you need. And again, let us know if you have any additional questions. I'll be here till tomorrow. But let us know if you have any additional questions.
Dr. Vendrell, your daughter, I think I may have met your daughter. You have a daughter that worked in the tech industry? Daughter?
That's my niece.
Okay.
Kiara.
Yes.
That's my niece.
I had the privilege of meeting her. She was bragging on her grandmother.
Oh yeah, she just to say a little bit, she was working with Microsoft, but her grandmother became ill, and in order, she gave up. Y'all hear this? My niece gave up an income that was huge to move back to help my sister take care of her grandmother. And to me, that meant legacy. She came back to make sure. Now she want another job. She thinks she's ready to go to work now, but she moved back. Don't too many young people making that kind of money that she was making in North Carolina.
But I'm not surprised because she was very proud of her grandmother's legacy. So
thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to end the stream from here. I know y'all are hanging on. Y'all, there's some strong listeners, for the 13. They hung on, y'all. We will continue the conversation. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we will make sure we update based upon our promises. Y'all be blessed. And thank you, Dr. Mandrell.
Thank you, Christy, for having me.
Yes, ma'am.